Section 3-4, solving two-step and multi-step inequalities. This is on Know It Notes, page 39. You can see as you look at the Know It Notes that there are not a lot of boxes there, so that leaves us plenty of space for our examples, just in case you talk to any of your friends who are using textbooks. Right? They should get some examples down there in that big empty space, not just fill in those two boxes. And I am going to stop at times in this video, ask you to pause and try problems yourself. So be ready to find the mouse button and not just watch straight through. Inequalities that contain more than one operation obviously are going to take more than one step to solve. So they're the same as equations in the sense that we still use inverse operations to undo everything in the inequality one step at a time, just like we would with multi-step equations. So there's really not any difference. We work backwards. First we add or subtract to get rid of things that are not attached to the variable. Then we multiply or divide to get the variable all by itself. And the way that they're different from equations, really it's just that one nitpicky but big detail. You have to remember to reverse the inequality symbol when you multiply or divide by a negative number. That's really it. That's the only thing that you're going to do differently, is just remember to flip that symbol. So let's try one. Write the problem down. 45 plus 2b is greater than 61. Go ahead and pause the video and see if you can solve it. Now, welcome back. You click play again. Let's go through and see if you did the same things that I would do. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 45. By the way, a lot of you have been having trouble with this. You've been wanting to add even when things are positive out front. So remember, if this is plus 45 out here, right, then we got to subtract 45 from both sides. That happened a lot on the test. So it's gone, and we have 2b is greater than 11 minus 5 is 6, 5 minus is 16, and then we're going to divide both sides by 2, so you should get b is greater than 8. And remember, for your own number lines, you only need 5 numbers on the number line. You don't need it to be as long as these. Right? Open dot on the 8, arrow to the right. We can check to make sure it works by both checking the number 8 to see that we get the right equation. 45 plus 2 times 8, or 45 plus 16, should give us 61, and it does. So the number's right. And then check the arrow by plugging in something that's underneath the arrow. So I'm going to pick 10 here. And if I do 45 plus 2 times 10, so 45 plus 20, right, I get 65. And 65 is greater than 61, so I know my arrow's going in the right direction. Here we have another one. You're going to solve the inequality and graph the solution. 1 minus 2n all over 3 is greater than or equal to 7. Pause the video, try it yourself. Welcome back. Let's go through it. Okay. Anytime we've got the whole, an expression over a fraction, or everything's over that fraction, go ahead and get rid of the denominator by multiplying both sides by it, and that cancels there. So we get 1 minus 2n is greater than or equal to 21. And we're going to subtract 1 from each side. And now be careful, because what's left over now is actually negative 2n. Right? Don't lose that equal sign, that negative sign, because that's going to make a big difference here. We have negative 2n is greater than or equal to 20. And now we're going to have to divide both sides by negative 2. So flip that symbol around, face it the other way. So we're dividing by a negative, and 20 divided by negative 2 is negative 10. So n is less than or equal to negative 10. Make sure you number your number line accurately. And that's a solid dot on negative 10, making it less than, so arrow to the left. Okay. Make sure you don't lose that negative sign. That's the real key here. And if we plug in our negative 10, we can make sure it works. 1 plus negative 2 times negative 10 would be 20. So 1 plus 20 is 21. Divided by 3 is 7. And we could plug in another number like negative 11 to make sure it actually works. I'm not going to do that right now because I don't want to take the time. Another thing to add to your box of how are they alike, how are these the same as solving equations, is that to solve more complicated inequalities, you still might need to simplify the expressions on one side, both sides. You might have to distribute. All of those steps that happened in equation solving, same thing here for inequalities. Remember, anytime you multiply or divide both sides by a negative number, you have to flip that symbol. So on this problem, negative 4 times the quantity 2 minus x is less than or equal to 8, you could either distribute or you can divide. So pick one way and go ahead and try one of the two ways while you pause the video. Okay, now that you're back, I'm going to do it both ways. Okay, so you can see how they're different. So if I distribute, I get negative 8 plus 4x is less than or equal to 8. Right? And then I'm going to add 8 to both sides, and I get 4x is less than 16, so x is less than or equal to 4. If I divide, I'm going to take my equation, my inequality, and I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4. Now because I'm dividing by a negative, I have to flip that symbol. So what's left over on the left is 2 minus x, because these canceled, and that's greater than or equal to 8. Okay. Then I'm going to take the 2 away from both sides. Okay. Oh, it's equal to 2. Negative 2. What kind of math am I doing? All right, so now we're going to subtract 2 from both sides, right? And let's zip zap that. So now we have negative x, right, because this was subtracted, so that was negative there, is greater than or equal to negative 4. But we know we can't leave the negative there, right? So we're going to divide both sides by negative 1. And look, the symbol flips back again the other direction. So we get x is less than 4. So it turns out this time that dividing actually kind of feels like it's harder than just going ahead and distributing. Now that won't always be the case. I think you just got to play it by ear. It's good to try and make an assessment when you look at the problem to see which way might be easier, but you should get to the point where you feel pretty confident with both ways. And just waiting for it to flip here. All right, one with fractions, and then I think we're getting pretty close to the end here. There might be one more example after this. No fraction freakouts. Just going to leave them and deal with them as is, or you can multiply by the least common denominator and get rid of those fractions. Right? I'm going to show you the least common denominator method. If you want to stop the video and try it yourself, go for it. Okay. Otherwise, I'm going to multiply. Remember, if I choose to multiply both sides, then I have to distribute that multiplication. So I end up with 6 times 2/3 is 4f, plus 6 times 1/2 is 3, is greater than 2. And now I can go ahead and keep solving. So 4f is greater than negative 1 after I take 3 away from both sides. And then f is greater than negative 1/4. I'm never dividing by a negative, so I don't need to flip the symbol. And here's my open dot and greater than. I can check to make sure the arrow is going the right way with plugging in 0. And I get 1/2 is greater than 1/3 once I get rid of the 2/3 f. 2/3 times 0. And it's going to work. If you prefer, you can do 2/6 minus 3/6 and then go from there and multiply both sides by 3/2. Okay, if you have a question about that, wanting to see it the other way tomorrow, just ask in class and I'll be happy to go through it with leaving the fractions as is. Okay, oops, I lost the problem. There we go. So we're going to look at one word problem here, and then we'll do some more in class too, but we're going to look at this one quickly here, and then we'll be done with this lesson. To rent a certain vehicle, Rent-A-Ride charges $55 per day with unlimited miles. The cost of renting a similar vehicle at We Got Wheels is $38 per day plus 20 cents per mile. For what number of miles is the cost at Rent-A-Ride less than the cost at We Got Wheels? So this is really important. We're looking for when Rent-A-Ride is less than We Got Wheels. So we're going to write this equation down on your page 39 there. You don't have to write all of the details of the problem. Just get the equation down. So we know that Rent-A-Ride charges $55, and they don't charge any mileage fee. right? At We Got Wheels, they charge $38, right? Plus 20 cents per mile, so 0.2 m or x or whatever you want to do. And then we're just going to solve that equation. It's not a very complicated equation to solve. You can use a calculator if you need some help. So go ahead and pause it and try and solve it. When you come back, we'll flip to the next page. Ready? So we subtract 38 from each side, and we get 17, I think, 15, yep, and is less than 0.2 m, right? And then we're going to divide both sides by 0.2, right? And if you're not good at decimal division, right, you can go ahead and do it on a calculator. Otherwise, it's also the same thing as 170 divided by 2. But I know a lot of you kind of freak out about the decimals. So it turns out to be 85 miles, or 85 is less than m. Remember, that's the solution. You always show the solution from the algebra. And then if necessary, you might round when you give the final answer. In this case, since it's a whole number, we don't really have to worry about it. So rent-a-ride costs less when the number of miles is, pay attention, more than 85 miles. Right, so we have to go quite a ways before, right, rent-a-ride, right, turns out to be cheaper. And that's because if we go back and look at the previous page, right, remember there's a while there where the 20 cents per mile is just catching us up to the $55 we've already spent. So there's a fair number of miles there where We Got Wheels is still going to be cheaper. But eventually, right, when you drive more than 85 miles, then suddenly rent-a-ride gets to be less, right? If you go 100 miles, rent-a-ride's going to be less than We Got Wheels. That's it, guys. See you in class.